So I said earlier in the quarter that we were going to talk about sort of general systems for the whole body, and then we were going to start to get into individual systems. So chapter 8 is really the first chapter where we start to talk about an individual system, and we're going to talk about the skin. And in this first section, we're going to look at an overview of the skin and its normal function, and then we're going to talk about describing some different skin lesions. And the learning objectives for this section are just to be able to describe those different skin lesions. So like I said earlier in the quarter, a lot of the things we talk about, like inflammation, the immune system, infection, they apply to all the different systems in the body. So we're going to start seeing that now in the skin. And next quarter, as we get into all the other systems, we're going to see there's infections specific to that area. There are immune issues specific to that area. There are inflammation issues specific to that area. There are cancers specific to that area. So as we go to each system, we'll talk about all those different things. So the skin has a lot of functions. It's our first line of defense and our non-specific immune response. And we talked about that in chapter 5 and 6 about when we were talking about inflammation and in chapter 5, 6, and 7, inflammation and infection and the immune system. So when our skin is unbroken, it is our first line of non-specific defense from anything that might come in from the environment and harm us. The skin also prevents excessive fluid loss, helps to control body temperature through sweating and just radiation of heat from the surface of the body. The skin's active in sensory perception, so how we're perceiving sensory information from the outside world, and it synthesizes vitamin D on exposure to UV light. So that's pretty handy. We'll talk more about that. So the skin has layers, three main layers, but there are sublayers. The epidermis is the top layer, it's avascular, and the very top layer of the epidermis is actually dead cells, and it sloughs off. The dermis is the middle layer, and that's where a lot of the organs of the skin, hair follicles, and sebaceous glands and sweat glands exist. A lot of the blood vessels go through the dermis, as well as sensory endings for nerves, for peripheral sensory nerves. The subcutaneous tissue, also called the hypodermis, there's a fat layer for cushioning. There's a lot of connective tissue in the dermis and the hypodermis to give us our shape and kind of hold us together and give strength to the skin. So the hypodermis provides a lot of cushioning and strength, but it's also a place where the deeper blood vessels lie, and there's an underlying layer of muscle as well. So the epidermis has 5 layers, and I'll briefly go over the layers, but I'm not going to quiz you on them or anything, but just to appreciate the layers of them. The epidermis itself varies in thickness throughout the body. So you might have some places where your epidermis is relatively thin and other places where it's relatively thick. The top layer is mostly composed of keratinocytes that are filled with keratin that waterproofs the skin and makes it tough because that's our outer barrier. And it keeps us from absorbing water from the environment too, so we can get in the pool and not, load up with water. It's not completely waterproof. Obviously, if you go and sit in the pool for 5 hours, your skin is going to start to macerate a little bit. It's going to be softened, but we're basically waterproof, so we can go in the shower and go out in the rain and not dissolve, which is kind of nice. Melanin is the pigment that determines skin color. The production of melanin depends on multiple genes and the environment that you live in. So the photograph here is a photograph I took of myself and my friend. Both of us are pretty fair-skinned, genetically speaking, but I live in Western Washington and she lives in Hawaii. And you can see the difference right there that the environment makes in the production of melanin. So not much chance to produce melanin in Washington State, and lots of chances to produce melanin in Hawaii, regardless of where you started. where your genes are. So if you have a complete lack of melanin production, that's called albinism. Melanin also determines your eye color, the color of your pupil. And so if you have complete lack of melanin production, your pupils will appear reddish. Not and from the blood vessels in there, you won't have any actual eye color. Vitiligo is a disease that where you get small areas of hypopigmentation. And so if you started out with whatever skin color you started with, if you started out with darker skin, you'll have areas that are almost like that area is albino. So you have white spots, basically, if you want to think of it that way. And because there's no pigment there. Melasma is the opposite. It's patches of darker skin. So where the melanin is, how much is produced, and how it's distributed is going to determine what the surface looks like. So the epidermis has the stratum corneum, which is the waterproofing barrier, mostly made of dead cells filled with keratin. The stratum lucidum is right below that. So there's cells that are on their way to being dead cells filled with keratin. They're getting filled at that point. The stratum granulosum is where the keratin formation begins. The stratum spinosum is where the cells are connected by desmosomes, and that's where the protein synthesis occurs. That's where the keratin is being made by the cells as they move up. And as the outer layer gets sloughed off, the other cells move up. The stratum basale is the only area of the skin with mitotic activity where new cells are being produced. So when we get a wound of whatever sort, you have to get down to those cells in order for new cells to be produced. Otherwise, it's just going to be scar tissue that's going to fill up that wound. And we talked a little bit about wound healing. We'll talk more about that in upcoming classes. But the area where healing is really going to go on is that lowest layer of the epidermis and below in the dermis. So in the dermis, there's lots of connective tissue. It contains elastic and collagen fibers. So collagen gives it strength and elastin gives it stretch. That's important. The dermis provides the flexibility and strength of the skin, and it also contains nerves and blood vessels, including sensory receptors for pressure, touch, pain, heat, and cold. So a lot of our sensory information coming in from the environment is coming through the dermis to the spinal cord, to the brain. We'll talk about that in neuro. The appendages of the skin are largely located in the dermis. Hair follicles, and each follicle has an erector pili muscle associated with that hair follicle, and that when you feel like you have goosebumps or your hair stands on end, it's those muscles that are working. They're highly connected into the sympathetic nervous system, which is controlling temperature and controlling blood flow. Sebaceous glands produce sebum, which is our natural skin oil. Secretion of sebum increases at puberty under the influence of sex hormones. Sweat glands, we have eccrine sweat glands all over the body, and those are largely the ones that are controlling our temperature. And we have apocrine glands in the axillae, scalp, face, and external genitalia. So all those structures of the skin live in the dermis. When we talk about burns, we talk about superficial thickness, partial thickness, full thickness. So you can think of superficial thickness is the epidermis. Partial thickness is down into the dermis, and full thickness is down to the hypodermis. So the layers of the skin are really involved in the diagnosis and treatment of burns. So when you think about those burns, think about what is in those different areas. So if you have a partial thickness burn, it's going to affect all of these appendages, and it's going to affect blood vessels and that sort of thing. If you have a full thickness burn, it gets down even further. One of the reasons why full thickness burns aren't as painful, of course, there's usually partial thickness around the full thickness, and that's painful, but the nervous structures are in that dermis, and they get damaged with a full thickness burn, and so a lot of times the sensation's not in that most damaged area, as well as the blood vessels getting cauterized, which makes it very difficult to heal. The hypodermis is beneath the dermis. It has connective tissue, fat cells, macrophages, and fibroblasts are hanging out there. So macrophages, they're doing their job for the immune system. They're cleaning up cellular debris. Fibroblasts are creating collagen to, bind everything together. And our larger blood vessels are in the hypodermis, as well as some nerves. So they're not all in the dermis, but and we have some nerves in the hypodermis as well. So we have, as we talked about in the infection chapter, we have our normal flora, our bacteria that basically take up space in our body so other bacteria can't get in. On the skin, we have two different main ones, Staphylococcus epidermidis and Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus is also in our respiratory mucosa, and Staphylococcus epidermis tends to be right on the skin. So when you're in microbiology class and you go and you swab the whole building and computer keyboards and all that other stuff, and then you go grow it in culture, most of what you grow is Staphylococcus epidermidis because it's sloughing off with the outer layer of our epidermis and getting on everything. So usually these guys, remember, they are usually good guys. They're taking up space so other bacteria can't get in, but they can be opportunistic pathogens, and we'll talk a little bit about skin infections coming up. But they can be opportunistic pathogens if they get in an area where they're not supposed to be. So if you have a break to your barrier, your normal flora can get in and cause problems. So microbes also reside under the fingernails and in hair follicles and in the glands of the skin. Opportunistic infections can occur because an injury or another inflammatory lesion, and the infection may spread systemically from skin lesions. So skin lesions might seem relatively easy to take care of and inoffensive, but they can cause problems, really serious problems. So we want to take care of our good skin. So skin lesions, this is a good segue right into skin lesions. The physical appearance of the lesion is used to make the diagnosis. So skin lesions might be caused by, so lesion doesn't necessarily mean like one little spot. It can also be the appearance of your skin, the look of your skin. So skin lesions may be caused by systemic disorders like liver disease. And this is a photograph from the book, and it shows someone with jaundice from liver disease with that yellowish color to their skin. It can also be caused by, lesions can be caused by systemic infections like chickenpox, where you get eruptions on the skin. It can be caused by allergies to ingested food or drugs, or localized factors like exposure to toxins or exposure to allergens. So the types of lesions are described by the location. That makes sense, right? The length of time the lesion has been present. So it just started, or it's been there for a week, or it's been there for a month, or it's been there for a year. We're going to describe the changes occurring over time, the physical appearance of the lesion, including the color, the elevation, so is it flat or is it elevated, the texture of it, the type of exudate, if any, and the presence of pain or pruritus, which is itching. Pruritus is the medical term for itching. So common skin lesions are, this is, from the book, obviously, the macule, which is a flat circumcised region, the nodule, which is a firm, raised, deep lesion, a papule, which is a small, solid elevation, a pustule, which is raised, often with a head filled with exudate or pus. Nice, right? And you knew there was going to be a time when we're going to have to start talking about pus. I mean, we have talked about it a little bit, but here we go again. A vesicle is what we usually call a blister, which is a thin wall, raised, fluid-filled lesion. A plaque is a slightly elevated, flat, kind of scale-like lesion. An ulcer is a cavity in the tissue, and a fissure is a crack in the tissue. So we'll talk about wound care a long time from now in your last academic quarter, and we'll talk about some of these different things because when you start getting into wound cares, now we have cracks and or ulcers and fissures, and that's never good. And also, our barrier's broken and infection can get in. So, all those different lesions, there is a table in the book that describes each individual little lesion, which is there you go, just a little description of that. Take a look at that table and know how to describe different lesions. And as we talk about the different disorders and infections, we'll talk about what lesions are associated with them. And I'll tell you why PTA needs to know that.